And good morning, Space Engineers. This is Mr. Kazarian, and welcome back to my drill tutorials. I'm still trying to get Space Engineers updated, and it's still not cooperating. So we're over here. Alright, so today is sort of the final kitting out and product demonstration of the system. Unfortunately, we're having some minor issues, so the last thing we want to add are some gyros, okay? And those gyros only really exist here to basically keep this thing aligned. That's the best way of putting it. So what can happen is that, let's see, gyroscope, power, show on HUD. Okay, so I'll need an actual control station over here. So what can happen is that as this thing starts to move, it starts to bounce. And that's because of the extra motions that are added by those drills. Alright? Alright, well, that's interesting. Can't see a single thing. Alright, that's fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that our, let's see, okay. We want to turn our dampeners on, and that will use the gyros and basically prevent them from bouncing around. And why are none of my pipes connected? That's interesting. That's very interesting, actually. That could just be a graphical bug. I don't see why they would have broken, to be honest with you. Oh. There we go. We're good. We're good. Alright, there we go. So, the last thing we're going to do also, before we can actually use this thing, is that we're going to get it put together for mining. And to do that, we need to keep it in place. Alright? Now, this means building off some extension arms to this whole thing. Excuse me. Now, the first thing about these extension arms is that you're going to want to have some space, alright, in between them and the drill head. Because the drill head, as said earlier, likes to move. So put that out to there, alright, and then we'll actually just draw this across, alright? Just so that we know how far out we're going. And how far out did this thing go? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. 22. Alright. So let's come over here. So that came out by 22, and it's how far away from the drill head? Let's see, if I'm sitting here, it goes 1, 2, 3 away from the drill head. 22 and 3. Awesome. Okay, so let's come down to here. 1, 2, 3. Came out 22. And we remove those. Alright, so now we're just going to stick some landing gear on the front. And these landing gear are going to be what actually locks us onto the platform. Landing gear 1, landing gear 2. Alright. And that should do the trick. So, let's hop into our control panel. Alright. And let's open up our control panel. Go to Info. Alright, those are sparking like all hell. So what we're going to do is we're going to release it. Okay, we're going to go back to motors. And we're going to turn them reverse on. We're going to lock it. We're going to go back to our motors and turn them off. There we go. So that was just a little bit of an issue there. All right. And now we're going to push this thing towards the asteroid. Just until, one more thing we want to do, is we want to go to our connector drill dock and turn it off. All right, that way when we hit P, shouldn't have actually done that. Interesting. There we go. And we also want to turn our motors off. There we go. So we're just going to motor our way. This is easier if you just turn your inertials off and just kind of like slide forward at a decently low clip. About 1 meter per second should be enough, by the way. Just until you have drill contact. And yes, by the way, this thing can be a pain in the rear end to turn, because that center drill isn't actually connected to anything. All right, we have drill contact. There we go. All right, so now we go to K. We're going to open up our landing gear and turn them off, all right? And that should, by turning them off, we're going to prevent them from disconnecting. All right, so now what we need to do is we need to go to K. We're going to hit, excuse me. Go to P to reconnect that. We're going to turn on the drills. We're going to go back to K. Okay. And we're going to reverse those motors out. Now, if you notice, it is wibbling a little bit, but it's actually not too bad, at least with this design. It can be a little worse when you're using the full-size drill. So, what is going to happen now is our entire thing is going to bounce around like a maniac. And this thing is going to move in towards the asteroid, and it should start mining it. Slowly, but surely. Now, the nice thing about this is that it's basically unattended, all right? And all you need to do, really, to make this thing work larger is add more blocks to it. Now, there is something of an upper limit to this, which is something I should warn you guys about as I do this, which is that the mass of this thing gets kind of extreme in a hurry, because these are heavy armor blocks. And that is intentional, by the way. I did use heavy armor blocks for a reason. And the reason I decided to use them was to increase the mass to decrease the amount of drill shake that's going on here. Because that drill shake is the one thing that can actually severely damage this platform. How to describe it? Basically what can happen here is that as those wheels stop being in the center of the platform, they start to experience more force, or they start to... It ends up acting like a fulcrum, all right? So, if you think about it, right, the first wheel all the way up here, right, that's the pivot point for this entire thing. As this thing starts to get further and further away, it's more of a lever, and there's more distance on the force, on the side of the lever, quote-unquote, that's applying the force. So what ends up happening is that this wheel ends up getting put under a lot of strain, all right? And when that happens, you can run into some trouble. can see this thing's drilling in. I think we've actually made contact now, haven't we? Yeah, we have. Not too shabby. Not too shabby. Seriously, phone? Hold on for a second. That was my alarm for if you're not already up and getting ready for work. You should be bolting out of bed about now. So you can see that this thing is drilling in quite nicely. Ooh, there's uranium in that asteroid. And it's pretty efficient, and it works pretty fast. And I'm increasing my voice here because it's kind of loud. Now, the one thing to watch out for is that as this thing drills in and it gets further in, you can start seeing some sparks over here. Alright? Yeah, see that right there? And that right there. Alright? That happens, it's a pain in the rear end, and you kind of just have to live with it. I suppose I could replace that with heavy armor block. Eventually the drill head gets damaged. I've found, though, that overall, the drill head takes a lot less damage than the resources you actually collect. Like, let's look over here for a second. We already have a bunch of platinum, a whole crap load of stone, and this has just been mining for a couple seconds now. Alright. And you can see the primary platform is being held stable just by the sheer amount of, well, weight. And those locking arms that I've used to lock it in place. And, you know, we can keep extending this out, too. We don't have to stop here. You know, I just put that there because I got tired of building it out. But we can go all the way out with this. And you don't even need those corner bits. Those corner bits really just exist in the name of keeping this thing vaguely stable. Or at least making it look pretty, you know. And making sure that these arms, these actual bits that are protecting it, don't come flying apart. Thank you for that, computer. I need to remember to turn off auto-saving whenever I'm doing this. So yeah, that's the drill platform. You know, this isn't... I wouldn't say it's the most complex thing I've ever worked on. I will say, though, that I firmly believe it's one of the coolest things I've ever worked on, at least in Space Engineers. It's very... I don't want to say no, it is kind of Minecraft-esque in a way. You know, it's very automated mining, Feed the Beast style, you know, that sort of stuff. Which is cool. Hey, you guys know me, right? If you watched any of my other videos, you know I love my automation. And this is pretty awesome, you know. When programming comes out, we can automate this fully, right? Like, when we have programming, this isn't just going to be send it in, you know, whatever. Let's see what we have now. Yeah, look at that. Look at that. Now, the only thing I wish is that we had filters, alright? So, things that would make this build even better. If we had some sort of filter system, so that I could say, for example, I'd like a way to say over here, right? Alright, everything that's an ore goes this way. However, if you're stone, I want you to come over here and just get dropped off the side or voided out or whatever. That would be nice. That would be a nice thing to have. I should really suggest that to the SE guys, but whatever. As it is right now, you have to kind of manually drop it, and we're losing bits, which is rare. Now, you could, of course, build these platforms even bigger than I have here, right? Which I could also do. I wonder if this would actually work. I'll have to experiment on that off camera. If I find any other ways to make this thing even better, I'll let you know. But yes, I am totally killing time right now until this thing runs through a full rotation. Yep, totally killing time. So let me actually bring you guys back in once we've run this thing through full rotation. It'll also give me a couple minutes to put my tie on before I go to work. Alright, be right back, guys. Alright, guys, we're back. We're reversing our motors. shifting them backwards. Now, one thing you can do here, by the way, you can actually hit it, is to shut your drills down. And that reduces the chance for damage while you're pulling this thing back out. You will see there was some space there where you have some losing a little bit. And of course, you can speed this thing up, because now that we're not drilling, we don't need to really worry about the speed we're moving. There we go. We're just extracting it straight back out. If you've noticed, those gyros have damped down any side-to-side rotation we're experiencing, any of that shimmy. Or most of it, at least. So the main thing is to remember that all of those wheels that we have there, they're going to turn any side-to-side motion, any lateral displacement, lateral or vertical displacement. They're going to shift that and turn that into a side-to-side shaking motion. All right, because there's no way that this entire drill can move side to side or up or down because of those wheels. So instead, we're going to get sort of a shake. So this thing's going to pull itself all the way back out. Got quite a decent clip, too. And we're pulling, and we're pulling, and we're pulling. Remember, our landing gear presently turned off. All right. So we're just yanking this thing back out. Nice and easy. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Oh, I forgot to remove that block. Whoopsies. Here we go. And we're going to hop back into this thing. And as soon as we can, we're going to lock those, which means we can turn our motors off. All right. Now, what we should see happening if I get out of this thing is that all of the items are being moved out of this. Now, it is faster, by the way, if we just connect this directly. You don't have to wait for this thing to go. It just sucks it all into those machines. But this way, it actually empties this thing out. So let's open this up. You can see this thing's being emptied. All right. And it's coming out of which large cargo container? Yeah, so this thing's already empty. This large cargo container, it's all in that connector. Right? Now we are in creative, so there's no real limit on space in these things, but that's neither here nor there. So it's all come out of there. It's now being dropped off. And what we can do is we can just disconnect this and send it in for another run. Now, before you do that, my advice would be to just run around with your welder and just fix any damage. So, like this block, this block. The drills actually seem to be fine, which is good. Oh, that drill needed a bit of work. But you just want to make sure that you sort of do your touch-ups on the machines, just to make sure. You know, because that drill was actually, this drill here was pretty close to breaking. And because there's no deformation on them, it's hard to tell. Now, you could probably, because this isn't any material damage to this machine, you could actually probably build a ring of welders around this so that when it's in its rest position, it gets repaired. Okay, that would be doable. I could see that working pretty well. For some reason, the motion appears to mostly be a side-to-side motion. And I'm going to experiment with replacing these side blocks here with some sort of armor plate, like a heavy armor block or maybe blast door block or something like that. But other than that, this thing's pretty much all set. So that's your basic tutorial on how to build, operate, and run this machine. And it didn't take me that long. Like, after I turned off the camera, I was gone for maybe 5 minutes. Yeah, I was outside maybe 5-6 minutes because I put my tie on, whatever. And I was done. So you guys can see how effective this machine can be. And you don't really have to worry about it. You don't have to control it. You set it, you lock it, you send it, you forget about it. All right? So this has been Mr. Kasarian. I want to thank you guys for watching this drill tutorial. Hopefully in the nearby future, we'll be all set with our little our updates to the mod pack. We'll be all set and we'll be actually able to use that. So, I want to thank you guys for watching. And as always, happy mining. Well, in this case, I guess happy drilling.